Do you truly, in your heart of hearts, truly believe that this is a human being? This,
Without a doubt.
without a doubt,
Yes.
this is a dolphin fetus.
So let me.
Without a doubt, a dolphin fetus is a human being. This is a human fetus. Look how similar they are. But quite different. Dolphin. You just confirmed that a dolphin, in life, you confuse dolphins for human babies often.
So let me.
You
ask
go to
you a question.
SeaWorld and you're like, someone's got human babies in that aquarium.
Good morning, my beauties and bees. It is I, your, maybe a little bit morose this morning, Bumblebee, coming at you live from within the Hive. Thank you so much for turning out. Actually, really low turnout this morning. I don't know what's going on. Maybe somebody's got something fun going on. Well, needless to say, the show must go on for the half a dozen of you that are still watching me. Usually I have about 20 people at the beginning of the show. It's kind of bizarre, but anyway, I don't know. Thank you so much. You may notice that I am sans makeup today. Probably something you haven't seen in a long time, and there's a reason for that. So, I'm going to do some real talk this morning. That's why I'm kind of somber at the moment. Because this social shit, it impacts everybody, and I'm so tired of it. So, I actually got to go out for the first time in a long time last night. I struggle to, as a trans woman, with certain struggles. I do struggle to go out and be social and interact in the outside world, outside of this right here, right? So, good morning, Dave. Good to see you. So I struggle to go out. My brother, though, he's like, no, you're going to come out with us tonight last night. So I'm like, I'm going to do it. Got all gussied up. Got looking really, really pretty. And we went out and we had some drinks and we went to 2 different places. It was all right for the most part. And then we did they put the Time Warp on the jukebox. It was fun, so we all were doing the Time Warp and dancing around and stuff, and some of the other bar patrons were kind of like joining in and having fun. It was a good time. Then I had to pee, and this bars, these are little bars, and these little towns are tiny. They don't have like a multi-person restroom. They just have 2 restrooms, right? They have a restroom for gentlemen and a restroom for ladies, right? So look at me. That's why I'm not wearing makeup this morning. Look at me, completely without makeup. No makeup. Look, you can see how old I am by looking at the lines under my eyes. So no makeup. Well, there may be a little bit of smear of makeup right there from last night. Yeah, little bit of smear from makeup from my. Anyway, so, but for some reason they decided that it was outlandish for me to go into that lady's bathroom alone, single person use bathroom. So I'm sitting in there, doing my business, as you do when you've had a few drinks, and I could hear these ladies on the other side of the door just ranting and raving about me using that bathroom. The ladies, not just any ladies that I had just been doing the fucking Time Warp with like 3 minutes before. So I couldn't go. Obviously, I was like, I had a panic attack in the bathroom. It was horrible. Had a panic attack in a single-use women's bathroom. And when I have a panic attack, it comes with a lot of sweat. So all my pretty makeup melted. And so I'm in the bathroom at the mirror trying to fix it all. Got the water running so I don't have to hear what they're saying about me. And come out of the bathroom. They didn't say a word to me. They didn't even look at me. Then a little bit later, they played a Prince song, with Doves Cry, I think. And those ladies came right back over and danced with us again. The fuck? So, I smiled and played along, and jolly girl, having fun at the bar with my siblings. Took pictures. If you follow me on social media, I'll probably post them and stuff. But yeah, I went through the motions of having a nice night with my family, cutting loose and having some drinks, and then I came home and went on to Mark Reed's after show to keep my brain occupied. But after that was over, I was just left alone with my thoughts and got to cry myself to sleep about this stupid shit. Just the humiliation of it all. I'm just as much of a woman as they are. I should be able to go to the bathroom. I struggle to go out in public for just this reason. And my siblings, they just don't understand. They're like real bootstraps people. So it's kind of frustrating. But they're good people. I mean, they're trying to help me. They're trying to help me overcome. Like, oh, you're just going to have to deal with it. You're going to have to, this is the society we live in. And it's like, that's easy to say from the outside, I guess. And yeah, I'm gonna revisit this at the end of the show. So if this is a topic that you are at all interested in, I will be covering more at the end, because I have some stuff going on that I wanted to talk about with that. But without further ado, I think that my audience wants to move into Cryptic Corner. So why don't we do that? Why don't we move into Cryptic Corner? Hello, my beauties and bees, and welcome to the dark little corner of the internet we call Cryptic Corner, where we explore the unexplained, the supernatural, the paranormal and hidden, the mysterious, the alien, the accursed, and the forbidden. I am your host, Miss Bumblebee, and today we are going to be delving into something of an ancient mystery. Well, not really ancient. Well, I guess colloquially you could call it ancient. It starts in the 16th century, so not really ancient, but intriguing nonetheless, and old, and involving some famous people. Some recognizable names are going to come up in the topic for tonight. Thank you so much for joining me, though. And if you want to participate with this this select little group of a live chat over here, join us on Saturday mornings at 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. That's about to change here in the Midwest. We're about to switch times tomorrow, and I fucking hate it. So, but join us tomorrow as well for, I guess this is for the live chat. Join us tomorrow for some flat Earth fun as well. So we're gonna make that a thing. Good morning, D. Good morning. I think my notifications didn't go out or something this morning. My regulars are missing. I don't know. I sent out my notifications, but YouTube, I don't know if I had this scheduled for the wrong time slot. Is that what happened? Because yeah, it looks like maybe it was like scheduled for like 8:30 or something, so maybe people showed up early. I don't know. I don't know what happened. That's all right. The show must go on. We're going to continue on with Cryptic Corner because tonight's audience is all about giants. You guys know I love giants, whether it's giant Bigfoot creatures or giants in the Bible like Goliath or the Nephilim, whether it's Scandinavian Jotunheim, or not Jotunheim, is it the Jotunheim? Anyway, I may have that flipped, but the Finn McCool was like one of, I used to have this book when I was a kid about Finn McCool. It was probably kind of Americanized and stripped of all its ferocity, because I know later reading the exploits of Finn McCool, which is who it's based on, it was pretty pretty brutal. So the idea that giants lived in the golden age of Europe and the Middle East and East Asia and all over the old world, giants, but they were long ago and far away, right? A legend of a forgotten time that was until we discovered the New World. And with the New World came the prospect of discovering these lost race of giants in some hidden pocket of the world. And maybe that did happen in Patagonia. Let's find out. Let's go over here and have a peek. Now, I guess I always want to blow up the screen before I talk about who it is. So, this channel, but the channel doesn't matter because this isn't even their video. They're just mirroring it. It's, this channel is called Claw. And the funny thing is they got part 1 on this, but there's no part 2 that exists that I could find. So, and they actually have part 1 noted in the into the video. But again, this is from 2 years ago, right? We'll see what they have to say. It's a very small channel, 448 subscribers. But let's see what they got going on. Good morning, Giants fans. If you guys like Giants, put a. Well, let's see. If you're subscribed, you could put a giant footprint like that in the side chat. But if you're not a channel member, that's okay. You don't have to be a channel member. You can put a. Is there a regular footprint? Yeah, there's regular footprints too. Yeah, check that out. So, yeah, if you want to see more giant content after this, definitely keep dropping these footprints into the side chat and let me know that you like covering giants. This is the first episode of Live from the Hive that we're not doing the creation watch here. So we'll jump right into sci-fails from Cryptic Corner. So just for my live chat to help you keep score. All right, let's go. Wow.
This is the Patagonian giant.
And I want to make sure that we see FlatWaterFlatEarth.com presents Actually, let's go to that website too. I looked at it, but it's flat water, flat earth. Because that sounds like my kind of jam. It just takes you to their YouTube channel. Let's see. So do they have part 2 of the Patagonian Giants? I mean, we'll split it up even if they have it. No, they just have part 1 there too, I swear. Look, this is the original channel. Maybe I should watch it here. They have 122k subscribers, so I'll give the little channel the watch. I'll give this little guy here some watch. What do you, that seems nice, right? Instead of going to this flat water. They have a lot of videos though, so maybe we can give them some Tartarian Giants. Ah! I'm in here. I'm in love with this channel now. Ooh. What else do you got? Daniel in the Lion's Den. Here we go. Plane formation and destruction. Look at that. Look at these big weird continents. Often, I guess, that can't be Australia. Ah, man. Anyway, there's some weird stuff out here, and I'm all about it. You guys know that. So, I hope you're here for more of this absolute nonsense coming out of these Tartarian corners of YouTube. All right, let's go.
Patagonian giants, like others, captured the European imagination for a very long time. The first mention of this race surfaced in the 1520s from the account of Antonio Pigafetta, the chronicler of Ferdinand Magellan's expedition. But one day, without anyone expecting it, we saw a giant who was on the shore, near today's Puerto San Julian, Argentina, quite naked, and who danced, leaped, and sang. And while he sang, he threw sand and dust on his head. Our captain Magellan sent one of his men toward him, charging him to leap and sing like the other, in order to reach.
So, these little European guys, like average height for what this 1600s. Let's see, average height for a Spaniard in 1600s. Let's see. How tall were the Spaniards in the 1600s? Since your standards, and this is from UC Essay on Population History from UC Press. Okay, so it says, since by our standards, the Spaniards of that time were small men with an average height of perhaps 160 centimeters, 5 foot 3 inches on average, and weighed perhaps 60 kilograms or 132 pounds. Yeah. So, you have these tiny 5 foot 3 men running around, right? And they were exposed, and there were, probably people that were like 170 centimeters and whatnot, but among the crew, people who were taller than average. The standard Spaniard. We're going to use standard Spaniard heights classifications. It's funny because you think about just the average person from Europe at the time being like almost like 5'11" or something, and they really weren't. They weren't. Now, and that's not to put them down or anything. I'm not really obsessed with. I'm not Ron DeSantis here with like, oh man, Columbus should have put lifts in his shoes. I wonder if Marco Polo leaned forward like Trump when he spoke, so that his people thought he was taller. Trump stands on his tippy toes when he talks. It's so funny. Ron DeSantis with his ridiculous cowboy boots. But why am I talking about that because it's funny. That's why. Why am I talking about it on Cryptic Corner? But these guys, so they're really short. So what they're considering a giant is subjective. Let's go on.
Reassure him and to show him friendship, which he did. Immediately, the man of the ship, dancing, led this giant to a small island where the captain awaited him. And when he was before us, he began to marvel and to be afraid. And he raised one finger upward, believing that we came from heaven. And he was so tall that the tallest of us...
I gotta ask, though, right? You're a person on a ship, right? You're like work on this ship. And you're supposed to be taking this guy around the Horn of... the Horn of South America. And you see this naked man dancing on the beach, throwing dust on his head, right? Which was like a lot of the South American cultures did this dusting. Famously, was it the Incas or the it was the Incas, I think, that dusted their bodies with gold. But anyway, it was like a part of their culture. But think about it, if you're a guy on a ship and this is happening to you, and your captain's like, hey, go get naked and do that too, so that guy will come over here. So your ship captain just ordered you to strip naked and dance and throw dust on your head. Like, what?
Us only came up to his waist. Withal, he was well proportioned. The captain named the people of this sort Pathagoni. The etymology of the word is unclear, but Patagonia came to mean land of the Bigfoot. Magellan seized two of the younger males as hostages to bring back.
And Patagonia is still that's still what it's named after, these giants. Isn't that fun? They named them after, they named the land after the folklore.
To Spain, but they got sick and died on the journey. Unbelievable. He stole two people to bring back, two giants, but they died.
It's fucked up.
100 years later.
That is fucked up. Yeah, that was the ancient world, though. Especially the might makes. This is what might make the world that might makes right brings us, right? It's where you can just, if you can overpower a group of people, you can freaking take them as slaves. That was just how it was back then. It's disgusting. And people are like, oh, this world accommodates the white man because it was built by a white man. There were other people building their own societies that may have been better, but your society was more destructive and destroyed them. I'm not saying that all these tribes and stuff in South America or North America or anywhere, Australia, that any of them were specifically. I'm not pinning down one and saying this society was better than Western culture, but we don't know because they never got a chance to advance to the state of Western culture because of colonialism. Wow, the land of Bigfoot, Patagonia. Yes, Patagonia is the land of Bigfoot.
In The World Encompassed, London, 1628, the first detailed account of Sir Francis Drake's circumnavigation, the author, Drake's nephew of the same name, wrote, Magellan was not altogether deceived in naming them giants, for they generally differ from the common sort of men both in stature, bigness, and strength of body, as also in the hideousness of their voice. Yet they are nothing...
I wonder if that means they had like really deep voice. That's what I'm wondering.
So monstrous or giant-like as they were reported, there being some Englishmen as tall as the highest of any that we could see, but peradventure the Spaniards did not think that ever any Englishman would come thither to reprove them, and thereupon might presume the more boldly to lie. The name Pentagones 5 cubits, these 7 foot and a half, describing the full height, if not somewhat more, of the highest of them.
So right now we're talking about, again, Spanish units that were different than what was a Spanish unit to a modern foot. Old Spanish foot to a modern foot. Convert it for me. Old Spanish foot. I wanted it to just convert it for me. I don't want to have to. It's giving me formulas to convert it, and I'm not doing all that. I'm not mathy. If somebody in the live chat wants to convert old Spanish foot to modern feet to see how tall these guys were, they're saying they were approaching 10 foot, but it's in the old Spanish. So yeah.
But this is certain, that the Spanish cruelties there used, referring to Magellan's hostage-taking, had made them more monstrous in mind and manners than they are in body, and more inhospitable to deal with any strangers that shall come thereafter.
Well, yeah, you show up, and then you kidnap some of their kids, and you're like, why are they so hostile? Why are they? And the idea that these people could have had genetic disposition to like acromegaly or whatever, the giantism, the disease, the pituitary disease, that could have been prevalent in the population. Maybe that's a possibility. I'm not disputing that.
He reduced the height of the Patagonians from 10 feet to 7.5 feet, but was obviously more intent on discrediting the Spanish and blaming them for the monstrosity of the giants. Ironically, though, he was really confirming the basic facts. English sailor offering bread to a Patagonian woman giant. It's the front piece to the first Italian edition of John Byron's A Voyage Around the World in His Majesty's Ship the Dolphin.
You don't think that the people who drew these pictures were like witnesses, right? This is someone described the situation to them, and they're like, okay, I'll draw that. And like, I want you to draw me giving a biscuit or whatever, a roll to a couple of women that I only come up to their waist. That's like, and then they're like, okay, I'll draw that. And then this guy's like, oh, this is a realistic depiction of it.
Florence, 1768. In the 1700s, the myth was still alive.
That is true, too. Nutrition does play a big part in human growth. So, and again, you got to remember the Spanish at this time were, little people. Not little people, but they were like below 5'5" on average. They weren't a tall people. So someone like me, I would have been considered incredibly tall, and I'm only like 5'10". I would have been considered like not incredibly tall. I'd be considered for a woman, I would have been incredibly tall. They'd be like, oh man, that's a tall woman. But the Patagonians, if they averaged over 6 foot tall, between 6 foot and 6'5", even if that was their average, and there's populations today in certain parts of the world that are healthy enough to achieve those averages, mostly in the really prosperous parts of Northern Europe where people are super happy and healthy because they have socialism. But I keep going back into politics, so I'm going to jump back over to this video.
Live and entertaining Europeans. Horace Walpole, the English historian and Gothic novelist, published an account of the giants lately discovered in a letter to a friend in the country, following the return in 1766 of Captain John Byron, who had circumnavigated the world in the HMS Dolphin. Word leaked that the crew had seen 9-foot giants in South America. Byron's May docking and Walpole's July publication suggest the rapidity with which rumors passed along the London grapevine. In his 31-page pamphlet, Walpole satirizes the whole idea and facetiously suggests that a limited number of the giant women could be imported for the sake of mending our breed. The official account of Byron's voyage.
Import their giant women is for snoo snoo. They want snoo snoo. You guys know about snoo snoo, right? Don't miss out on the snoo snoo.
Voyage appearing in 1773 finally debunks it, but not without respecting the Patagonians' vertical features. So here's Byron's account. When we came within a little distance from the shore, we saw, as near as I can guess, about 500 people, some on foot, but the greater part on horseback. One of them, who afterwards appeared to be a chief, came towards me. He was of a gigantic stature, and seemed to realize the tales of monsters in a human shape. If I may judge of his height by the proportion of his stature to my own, it could not be much less than 7 feet. Mr. Cumming, one of Byron's officers, came up with the tobacco, a gift, and I could...
So, 7 feet. It's not unheard of. It's within the human capacity. Yeah. So just the fact that they were talking about bringing these native women back to the European nations to mend their breed so that we could be giants too. So that, my ancestors, and if you're white, your ancestors too could get rid of us. Maybe they did, because we are taller than they were. Maybe that's why they're complaining, like, hey, we're only 5'3". Why do these guys get to be 6'7"?
Could not but smile at his astonishment, which I saw expressed in his countenance, upon perceiving himself, though 6 feet 2 inches high, become a pygmy among giants. For these people may indeed more properly be called giants than tall men.
Who was 6 foot 2 inches tall?
Stature to my own, it could not be much less than 7 feet. Mr. Cumming, one of Byron's officers, came up with the tobacco, a gift, and I could not but smile at his astonishment, which I saw expressed in his countenance, upon perceiving himself, though 6 feet 2 inches high, become a pygmy among giants.
So you're saying that that he was 6 foot 2 inches tall, and again, presumably it's the old Spanish feet and inches is what they would have been using, which are, I want to say it's close to 9 inches, a Spanish foot, but I don't want to do the formulations.
For these people may indeed more properly be called giants than tall men, the shortest of whom were at least 4 inches taller. So in this portion...
So he just said right there that they're about 4 inches taller than this guy that they said was 6'1", right? So 4 inches taller than that, so you're talking 6'5", which is definitely a tall people. A giant people, though, meh.
I'll be reading to you directly from an account of the voyages undertaken by the order of His Present Majesty for making discoveries in the Southern Hemisphere, and successively performed by Commodore Byron, Captain Wallace, Captain Carteret, and Captain Cook in the Dolphin, the Swallow, and the...
I gotta say I love these old maps, though. I'm just gonna throw that out there. I love looking at old maps of the ancient world, or at least what people thought the ancient world looked like, right?
Endeavour, drawn up from the journals which were kept by these commanders and from the papers of Joseph Banks, Esquire. Voyages round the world. So I'm reading to you directly now from the general introduction. This cannot be...
Ooh, thank you for doing some calculations for me. AR, let me read this for you. Old Castilian units, including the pi, which is shown as 11.128 inches, while back then 6'2" was, Tubi, and you're absolutely right. The pi was like a foot. Okay, so the pi was 11.1 inches. So I guess it's not that much shorter than a modern foot, but still shaving an inch off of every foot as you take a measurement, it's gonna have an impact. How tall would someone be if they were saying they were 6'2", but it was in this pi unit, right? That's the question. So if he's 6'2", but it's in pies, how tall is he in real feet or modern feet?
Be done in an unbroken series when the complicated and multifarious objects of history are to be recorded. But as each of the narratives in this work is a single thread, the transactions of every day are set down in a regular succession and the time noted in the margin. Great care has been taken to make the charts and the nautical parts of the narrative coincide. If there should be any difference, which it is hoped will not be the case, the charts are to be confided in as of unquestionable authority. By the charts as well as by the narrative, especially by that on which the tracks of the several vessels are marked, it will be seen how far the existence or non-existence of a southern...
You know, you don't see enough modern reconstructions of South American people with hats and headdresses like what they actually wore. You know, the wraps and stuff that they actually wore that were unique and cultural, and they're just totally lost to history. The only place you see them is in old drawings and paintings and stuff of people trying to capture. Because most of these cultures in society are gone. We'll never see them again. Never know what they were like. If there's ruminant populations, they're mixed with other cultures, or they've integrated into Western culture, Hispanic society, and things like that. So we'll never know what exactly their ways of life were like completely. And this idea, the North American idea, like the Plains Indian, it really dominates the pop culture image of the native people of the New World, when they were actually quite diverse and unique. These people down here, they used slings and bolas and stuff. They were fishermen. There's a group of natives that live down here that free dive into the ocean to collect the bounty of the sea, and they have unique lung capacities and such that really aid them in these ventures.
Continent is already ascertained, and what land has in the course of these voyages been first discovered. The charts also will at one view present any mistake which might arise from the same name having been given to different islands by the several commanders in these voyages, without the trouble of comparing the latitudes and longitudes assigned them in the narrative. As it is but a very few years since the existence of a race of men above the common stature upon the coast of Patagonia was the subject of eager dispute among all ranks of people in this country, I have brought together the whole of the evidence on the question, as I find it in a collection of voyages lately printed in France, under the title of Histoire des Navigations aux Terres Australes. It must be acknowledged that the contrariety of the reports that have been made by ocular witnesses concerning
Ocular witnesses. I love this old-timey terminology, but what are they hunting here? Is this supposed to be... So... I'm sorry, I'm like all captivated by the art. What is this guy? I didn't even know. It seems like it's like a wind god or something like that, but I can't be sure. This guy's running bare-assed, and presumably this is a what could it be? I guess a maned wolf, Falkland Island wolf, maybe.
Contrariety of the reports that have been made by ocular witnesses concerning a fact easy to be determined does not deviate less from the common course of things than the gigantic stature of the people in question. It appears that during an 100 years, almost all navigators of whatever country agree in affirming the existence of a race of giants.
So, I'm just reading what Jeannie Bottle says here. It says, small spaces on a ship. Tall folks were not often on board for long voyages due to the size of the beds, and below deck was cramped. So small people were better suited for long journeys, and they probably needed less nutrition to sustain their body mass too. So that's probably
on the
true.
Coast of Patagonia, and that during another century, the much greater number agree in denying this fact, treating their predecessors as idle fabulists, and imputing their reports either to the terror which the rude fierceness of a savage people inspired, or yes, we did look that up. I don't know if you were here at the beginning of this this segment, but we did pull up to see what the average height of folks in Spain was at this time, and it was actually 5'3" in modern measurements. So 6'2" would be like 5'8.5". So someone who was 6'2", considered tall, would actually be shorter than I am today. Thank you for converting that, AR. You are the MVP. You are the MVP of the show today. Cosmic Kyle in the house. Good to see ya. Do you believe in giants, Kyle? Or do you think that maybe like 6 foot people that average over 6 foot tall just look like giants to old Spanish explorers? or to the natural propensity of mankind to assume importance by pretending to have seen wonderful things. That men have a strange propensity to the marvelous cannot be denied.
That guy's having a bad day. Look at that.
Nor that fear naturally magnifies its object. But though it be allowed that the accounts of the Patagonians have in some instances been exaggerated, it is certain that all who have affirmed their stature to be gigantic were not under the influence of
Is this
fear.
the Straits of Magellan?
Is
this the Straits of Magellan we're looking at here?
very strange that nations who have an hereditary hatred to each other and an acknowledged opposition of interest should agree in asserting an evident falsehood. In the first place, it is well known to have been an opinion.
I don't think it's a falsehood. I think it's just that they were short people seeing tall people and thinking they were giants. Like, not like super tall people, but people that averaged, again, maybe around 6 foot, between 6'2" and 6'5" in some way. Like real 6'2" though, not this, not the pi 6'2", which is 5'8.5".
Long established, both in our ancient world and in America, that there was once a race of giants upon earth who distinguished themselves by violence and guilt. Barbonet was told by the inhabitants of South America that a deluge having laid Peru under water, the Indians retired to the mountains till the flood should subside, and that when they came again down to the plain, they found there men of an enormous stature, who attacked them with great ferocity, killing many, and driving the rest to the caves of the...
Oh, we're gonna get biblical here? I kind of feel like it's going to get biblical. But I got full nudity on the screen right now. And these people have a pet monkey. I just want to make sure that we understand that. So this is maybe like a medieval Dora and Diego kind of situation.
rocks. But that having continued in their hiding places many years, they saw in the air a young man who destroyed the giants by thunderbolts, and thus restored to them the possession of their country. His guides also showed him many marks upon a rock, which they said were impressed by the thunderbolts, and many bones of an extraordinary size, which they believed to be remains of the giants. But they did not pretend to know when the deluge happened. The Inca Garcilaso de la Vega, in his History of Peru, Pedro de Sieca, chapter 52, Garcilaso, History of Peru, Book 9, Chapter 9, relates, according to a tradition universally received, a number of vessels or junks came to Point St. Helena with a company of giants on board.
So Port St. Helena, are they talking about the St. Helena Island? Like the island of St. Helena?
Stature so enormous that the natives of the country were not higher than their knees, that their eyes were as broad as the bottom of a plate, and their limbs proportionably large, that some of them were naked, and others slightly covered with the skins of beasts, that when they came on shore they dug a pit of an astonishing depth in the rock, and each of them consuming as much provisions as would be sufficient for 50 men, the country was soon exhausted, and they were obliged to live upon fish, that they see...
So these giants showed up and ate all their food. I'm assuming they're talking about like this, that the port of St. Helena, the island. But it doesn't say natives, though, and I know St. Helena doesn't really have natives. It has a governor and like a colonizer, or colony. It's been colonized, but I don't think it ever had like a indigenous population. So maybe they're talking about someplace else.
Seized the women of the country, to whom their brutality was fatal, and afterwards giving themselves up to worse vices, the whole race was destroyed by fire from heaven, which, however, left their bones unconsumed, as a lasting memorial of divine vengeance. Bones of an amazing size are said to have been found in this country, and fragments of teeth, which, if they...
Bones of incredible size that are dinosaur bones, maybe? Because I know that some of the biggest dinosaurs that have ever existed are freaking from South America, and from this region, actually. So... that's one of those things that makes you go, right? Oh.
They were whole, must have weighed half a pound. Those who wish to know all the particulars of these American traditions may satisfy their curiosity by reading Torquemada, Book 1, Chapter 13 and 14, where they will find that these fables are very similar to those relative to the same subject in other parts of the world. The bones said to have been the bones of giants which have been found in America, and which were shown at Mexico and other places in the year
Oh, how long do you think it's going to take before these bones disappear in the Smithsonian like all these other giants?
1550, are probably the bones of some animal unknown, and indeed nothing less than the site of such a race of human beings, or a
Admiral Lord Nelson was 5 feet tall, says Genie Bottle. Thank you for doing these calculations for me, guys. You rock. I don't want to math in the morning. I'm trying to do a show.
an entire skeleton can be admitted as a proof of their existence. Turner, the naturalist, reports that in the year 1610 the thigh bone of a man was shown in London, who must have been of an enormous size. But this testimony is not decisive, though the
100 years later, in A World Encompassed, the first detailed accounts of Sir Francis Drake, circumnavigation, the author, Drake's nephew of the same name, wrote, Magellan was altogether deceived in naming them giants, for they generally differ from the common sort of men, both in stature, bigness, strength of body, and also in hideousness of voice. But yet they are nothing so monstrous or giant-like as they were reported, there being some Englishmen as tall as the highest of any that we could see, but peradventure the Spaniards did not think that ever an Englishman would come thither to reprove them, and thereupon might presume the more boldly to lie the name Pentagones 5 cubits, viz. 7 feet and a half, described the full height, but if not what more of the highest of them. But this is certain. The Spanish cruelties there used, referring to Magellan's hostage takings, may have made them more monstrous in the mind and manner than they are in body, and more inhospitable to deal with than with any stranger that shall come to thereafter.
author adds that he had himself seen near the River Plata, upon the coast of Brazil, a race of giants who went stark naked, and that the hinder part of their heads was flat and not round, that the women had long black hair, as coarse as a horse's mane, that the men were excellent archers, and besides, their bow and arrows carried 2 massive balls or bullets, each fastened to one end of a thong, a weapon.
That's definitely look like bolas to me. Is that not what a bola is? That looks like a bola. Why is it a bullet?
Which they used with great dexterity and force, either by striking with it or throwing it like a stone from a sling. One of these giants, he says, was 12 feet high, but acknowledges that he saw no others.
12 feet high, so that we gotta calculate that in, but I don't know if we're to the point now where we're talking about Sir Francis Drake's travels, and I think the English foot was actually, well, who are we on? Did they switch from Francis Drake?
They're so tall. Of this fact, there are other ocular witnesses who perhaps may be thought more worthy of credit. Among the Spaniards, Magellan, Loaifa, Sarmiento, and Nodal. Among the English, Cavendish, Hawkins, and Nivet. Among the Dutch, Sebald, De Noort, Lemaire, and Spilberg. And among the French, those who went in the expedition from Marseille.
He's just like name dropping people. He's like, oh yeah, these people said there were giants, without any kind of context or anything, just name dropping them.
And St. Malo's. Those who bear testimony to the contrary are Winter, the Dutch Admiral Hermite, Froger in De Jean's narrative, and Sir John Narborough. Winter, after having himself seen the inhabitants of Patagonia, says in direct terms that the accounts of there being giants are falsehoods.
Wait a minute, that's even said. This is Maya. Maya standing. Yeah, this is not Patagonia. This practice is not the Patagonian practice. These were the equatorial kingdoms were the ones who did the head binding and stuff.
Terms that the accounts of there being giants are falsehoods invented by the Spaniards, and it must be contested that the testimony of these navigators at least counterbalances the evidence on the other side, especially as they were best acquainted with the Strait of Magellan and the neighboring country. Such navigators as have visited this country and are silent with respect to the stature of the inhabitants, particularly Sir Francis Drake, must be considered as witnesses against the fact in question, for their silence is a proof that they saw nothing extraordinary. It must, however, be observed in the first place that the greater part of those who hold the affirmative in this question speak of people that inhabited the desert coast of Patagonia to the east and west, and that, on the contrary, those who hold the negative speak of those who inhabit the strait upon the sides of the utmost point of America to the north and south. The nations of these two districts are certainly not the same, and if the first have sometimes been seen in the strait, it cannot be thought strange, considering how short the distance is from Port St. Julian, which appears to be their ordinary habitation. Magellan and his people saw them there very often and trafficked with them, sometimes on board his ships and sometimes on shore. Nor was this all. He seized 2 of them and kept them prisoners in his vessel.
Yeah, this is about the capture and everything.
One of whom was baptized some time before his death and taught several words of his language to Pigafetta, who formed them into a little dictionary. These are facts, then, which nothing can be more positive or less subject to illusion. I affirm, says Nibbit, that when I was at Port Desire, I measured several dead bodies that I found buried there, which were from 14 to 16 spans high, and saw tracks in the sand which must have been left by people of nearly the same stature. I have also frequently seen at
Big footprints, yeah. Big footprints, of course. Yeah, you gotta watch out for those ocular witnesses, Dr. Mordecai. They're the shiftiest kind of witnesses. No wonder they adopted the metric system. All these giants' measurements are a mess, right?
Brazil, one of the Patagonians who had been taken at Port St. Julian, and though he was but a youth, he measured no less than 13 spans. And our English prisoners at Brazil have assured me that they had seen many men of the same stature upon the coast of the strait. Sebald de Weert says that, when he was in the strait, he saw giants of the same bulk, who tore up trees by the roots, that were a span in diameter, with great facility. He also saw women that were gigantic, and others of the common.
So, we're getting, you're right, these measurements are all over the place. Now we've moved into spans. So we went from the Spanish foot, which is the pi, to presumably the English foot of the time, which I think is pretty close to the modern measurements. But Sir Francis Drake was 5 foot tall. Yes, so these people are tiny. These and Sir Francis Drake was the British guy. Yeah, it was so. Yeah, seeing anybody over 6 foot tall would have just seemed outlandish to these folks. Like we talked, AR pointed out earlier, the homeboy that was 5'8" was considered tall among the Spaniards.
In stature. Oliver de Noort reports that he saw savages of a gigantic stature at Port Desire, but does not call them giants, that he took 6 of them prisoners and carried them on board his ship, one of whom afterwards told him that the country was inhabited by many different nations.
Again with
4
the
of
Maya.
which were the ordinary stature, but that farther within the land, in a territory called Coin, there was a gigantic people distinguished by the name of Tyromenon, who were continually making war upon the other nations. Spielberg relates that he saw a man of an extraordinary stature upon the coast of Tierra del Fuego, but that the sepulchres which he found had received men of the common height. Eris Klatz, who is on board Lemaire's fleet in the character of commissary, a man well worthy of credit, declares that having visited the sepulchres which he discovered upon the coast of Patagonia, he found the bones of men who were between 10 and 11 feet high, which convinced him that the reports of former navigators were true. And here it must be confessed that the examination was made in cold blood, when it cannot be pretended that the object was magnified by fear. Some others, particularly Nodal.
Why did all of a sudden now does it have background music? Like out of nowhere, all of a sudden, boom, we have background music. What the hell? That threw me off so bad.
And Sir Richard Hawkins content themselves with saying that these savages were a head taller than the inhabitants of Europe, and of such a stature that the people on board their vessels called them giants.
When you say this, a span is the width of a human hand, is it like this? Is that a span? So it would be like my hand, but it's not consistent though. I have kind of big hands. It is maybe like 5 inches, something like that.
the evidence of past times. We shall now consider that in the age in which we live. In 1704, the captains Harrington and Carman, who commanded 2 French vessels, one from St. Malo's and the other from Marseille, saw at one time 7 of these giants in Possession Bay. At another time 6, and at a third time they had an interview with a company of more than 400 men, part of whom were gigantic and part of the common stature. That Harrington and Carman reported this fact is attested by M. Frezier, superintendent of the fortifications.
And again, these head-binding skulls they keep showing have nothing to do with Patagonia. Just making that absolutely clear. They're just trying to like poison the well with the idea, the notion that these are the remains of the people. A span diagram in Wikipedia. You're the bee's knees.
Tanya, a man well known and universally esteemed. Frezier never saw any of these savages himself, but he says that being upon the coast of Chile, Don Pedro Molina, governor of the Isle of Chiloé, and many other eyewitnesses told him that there was at a considerable distance within the country an Indian nation called by their neighbors Caquohes, who sometimes came down to the Spanish settlements that were more than 9 feet high and were the same race with the Patagonians who lived on the eastern coast, and have been mentioned in former relations. We are told by Rovino,
It blocked out his wiener.
the Spaniards who live upon the
Even though it had it earlier in this same video, they had like a real person, like a real photograph of a native with his stuff just free hanging, and they didn't blur that out.
coast in South America report that certain white Indians inhabit part of Chile, with whom they are always at war, that they are of an enormous bulk and stature, and that whenever they take a Spanish prisoner, they force up the breastbone, as they would the shell of a tortoise, and tear out his heart. Narborough, on the contrary, though he agrees that the Indians who inhabit the mountains near the Spanish settlements at Chile and perpetually commit hostilities against them are tall, expressly denies that their stature is gigantic.
And they just like, oh yeah, they just rip people in half. Did you hear that? They just rip them in half like a tortoise shell. Their rib cage like it's a tortoise shell, and get that heart out of there. Nom nom nom. What the hell?
He had often measured the skulls and the prints of the feet of the savages on the coast of the Strait of Magellan, which he says were of the common size. He had also several times seen numerous companies of them, even at Port St. Julian, and these he declares not to be taller or bigger than other men. While Narborough is certainly a credible witness and his evidence is directly to the point, it is confirmed by that of Le Hermite, who says
There he goes
that
again.
the people he saw upon the coast of Terra del Fuego, though they were robust and well proportioned, were not larger than the inhabitants of Europe. And lastly, M. de Gen bears testimony that none of the people he saw at Port Famine were 6 feet high. Those who diligently consider these different relations will find reason to believe that all the parties have spoken truth, each of them faithfully reporting what he saw, and therefore that the existence of a gigantic race in these parts is a real fact, not to be questioned merely because they were not seen by every mariner that visited the country. It appears to be well established that
Well, again, we're not. The dispute isn't whether or not there was these populations in South America that were abnormally tall, on average, especially compared to you got Sir Francis Drake, which was 5 foot tall. So, yeah. These folks seeing a native who is over 6 foot, it's going to be like, oh my gosh, it's a giant.
the inhabitants of the 2 borders of the strait are of the common stature, and that the race distinguished by the name of Patagonians made their constant residence upon the desert coasts, either in some miserable hovels in the depth of the woods, or in some caverns of the rocks, scarcely accessible to any but themselves. And it appears from the account of Oliver de Noort that when the strait began to be frequented by European vessels, they hid themselves as soon as the ships were in sight, which accounts both for their not being seen and for the recent marks of inhabitants upon a coast that appeared to be deserted. Perhaps the frequent appearance of our ships upon this coast at length determined them to quit it as a settled habitation, returning only at particular seasons of the year, and taking up their constant residence in the interior part of the country.
And that's completely reasonable in my opinion, that after decades of bad experiences with European travelers approaching them on the coast, they decided to move their settlement inland to avoid those types of conflicts, because they were kidnapping their people.
Lord Anson was of opinion that they resided statedly on the western side of the Cordillera Mountains, and visited the eastern side occasionally, but not often. So that if they have been rarely seen by the vessels which have touched at the coast of Patagonia for the last 100 years, the reason probably is, that being, like other Indian nations, desirous to conceal themselves from strangers, they retired to the mountains. It is indeed to be regretted that no skeleton of these people has been brought into Europe, and it may at first seem strange that no such evidence of their uncommon stature should have been produced, as it is known that several of them who had been made prisoners by the commanders of European vessels died on board soon after they came into a hot climate. But the wonder will cease when it is considered that all mariners have a superstitious opinion that the compass will not travel if there is a dead body on board the vessel.
Well, to say that the superstition that all mariners have, I think is an overstatement. I don't know that that would be true for all mariners. People definitely did bring back remains of indigenous people to Europe during this period of time. They really did. I mean, it's not even disputed that they brought back both archaeological and fresh remains of indigenous populations and live specimens, of course. So,
upon the whole, it may reasonably be presumed that the concurrent testimony of late navigators, particularly Commodore Byron, Captain Wallis, and Captain Carteret, gentlemen of unquestionable veracity, who are still living, and who not only saw and conversed with these people but measured them, will put an end to all the doubts that have been hitherto entertained of their existence. Having thus brought together the whole of the evidence for and against a fact which has long been the object both of popular and philosophical curiosity, I shall not anticipate any opinion that the reader may form concerning future navigations in the track which has been described by any of the vessels whose voyages are here related, except that although it is the opinion of Commodore Byron, who spent 7 weeks and 2 days in passing through the Strait of Magellan, that it may be passed in 3 weeks at the proper season, yet the passage cost Captain Wallis near 4 months, though he performed it precisely at the time recommended by the Commodore, having reached the eastern entrance about the middle of December. I cannot, however, dismiss my readers to the following narratives, without expressing the regret with which I have recorded the destruction of poor naked savages by our firearms in the course of these expeditions, when they endeavored to repress the invaders of their country, a regret which I am confident my readers will participate with me. This, however, appears to be an evil which, if discoveries of new countries are attempted, cannot...
So, I mean, they're talking about that they opened fire on these people that were... I mean, imagine they were throwing their slings at them, maybe arrows and perhaps some spears and stuff, trying to drive the invaders back, because they don't know. The only thing they're sure about is that these people in their big ships are kidnappers and killers.
Not be avoided. Resistance will always be made, and if those who resist are not overpowered, the attempt must be relinquished. It may perhaps be said that the expense of life upon these occasions is more than it is necessary to convince the natives that further contest is hopeless, and perhaps this may sometimes have been true. But it must be considered that if such expeditions are undertaken, the execution of them must be entrusted to persons not exempt from human frailty, to men who are liable to provocation by sudden injury, to unpremeditated violence, by sudden danger, to error by the defect of judgment or the strength of passion, and always disposed to transfer laws by which they are bound themselves to others who are not subject to their obligation, so that
say Inca, Egyptian, not Patagonian. These are not anything to do with Patagonia, just to be clear. This is a misrepresentation.
The excess thus produced is also an inevitable evil. If it should be said that supposing these mischiefs to be inevitable in attempting discoveries ought not to be attempted, it must be considered that upon the only principles on which this opinion can be supported...
More not Patagonian. They're just showing you, they just throw anything they want up on the screen and people just eat it up. So yep, that's a Patagonian giant skull.
The risk of life for advantages of the same kind with those proposed in discovering new countries is in every other...
More non-Patagonian skulls.
Their instance unlawful. If it is not...
Another non-Patagonian skull.
lawful to put the life of an Indian in hazard by an attempt to examine the country in which he lives with a view to increase commerce or knowledge.
What's that say up there at the top? Does that say Mayan? Again? Ugh.
It is not lawful to risk the life of our own people in carrying on commerce with countries already known. If it be said that the risk of life in our own people is voluntary, and that the Indian is brought into danger without his consent, the consequence will still follow. For it is universally agreed, at least upon the principles of Christianity, that men have no more right over their own lives than over the lives of others, and suicide being deemed the worst species of murder, a man must be proportionably criminal in exposing his own life for any purpose that would not justify his exposing the life of another. If the gratification of artificial wants or the increase of knowledge are justifiable causes for the risk of life, the landing by force on a newly discovered country in order to examine its produce may be justified.
Ah, we're gonna
If
look
not,
at some
every trade in
stone
possession that
giants.
exposes life for advantages of the same kind is unlawful. And by what trade or profession is not life exposed? Let us examine all the multitudes that art has employed, from the refiner who sweats at the furnace to the sedentary officer who grows pale at the loom. And perhaps none can be found in which life is not in some degree
So much pareidolia going on here. I can't get it.
sacrificed to the artificial necessities of civil society. But will it therefore be said that civil society, to which this sacrifice is made, is for that reason a combination contrary to the great...
What are you implying with this one? Is this what I'm getting emotional about, Dr. Mordecai? This... Yeah.
original principles of morality, which
Some
are the
vagina
basis of all
caves.
duty?
More
Will it be said
faces.
that to exercise the faculties which are the distinguishing characteristics of our nature is unnatural, and that being endowed with the various powers which in civil societies only can be brought into action, it was incongruous to the will of our Creator that any such society should be formed, and that it would be pleasing to Him if, still continuing in a savage state, these powers should lie torpid in our nature, like life in an embryo during the whole of our existence? This surely must appear extravagant and absurd in the highest degree, especially as it must be allowed that although commerce and arts in some instances expose life, in others they preserve it. They supply the wants of nature
Why are you so
without
blurry?
rapine and violence, and by
1080.
producing a common interest, they prevent the inhabitants of the same country from being divided into different clans, which among savages are almost perpetually
Yeah,
committing
if you Photoshop a dragon face onto the rocks, it looks like a dragon face. Who would have guessed?
hostilities against each other, with a ferocious cruelty which is not to be found where civil government and literary knowledge have ameliorated the manners of mankind. On the whole, therefore, it seems reasonable to conclude that the increase of knowledge and commerce are ultimately common.
Oh, we're doing some Roger
and that the
shit
loss of
right
life
here.
Which happens in the attempt is among the partial evils which terminate in general good.
We're going full Roger. Full Roger. The rocks were alive.
I have now only to request of such of my readers as may be disposed to censure me for not having attributed any of the critical escapes from danger that I have recorded to the particular interposition of Providence, that they would, in this particular, allow me the right of private judgment, which I claim with the greater confidence, as the very same principle which would have determined them to have done it, has determined me to the contrary. As I firmly believe the divine precept delivered by the author of Christianity, there is not a sparrow falls to the ground without my Father, and cannot admit the agency of chance in the government of the world. I must necessarily refer every event to one cause, as well the danger as the escape, as well the sufferings as the enjoyments of...
This should be this is a preparation. This is prep for your Howard review, Mark. This is your palate getting your taste. Switch this around. Like you're sampling a fine wine. What you're looking at right now, you should bring this to Howard. You should be like, Howard, look at these faces. Look at these faces in the rocks, Howard.
of life. And for this opinion I have, among other respectable authorities, that of the Bible. Shall we, says Job, receive good from the hand of God, and shall we not receive evil? The Supreme Being is equally wise and benevolent in the dispensation of both evil and good, as means
Monkey
of
face!
effecting
Did you guys see the monkey face? Oh my gosh. Let's see that again.
wise and benevolent in the dispensation
I
of
hear
both evil and
monkey.
good, as means of effecting ultimate
It
purposes
goes so
worthy
fast.
of his ineffable perfections. So that whether we consider ourselves as Christians or philosophers, we must acknowledge that he deserves blessing, not more when he gives than when he takes away. If the fall of a sparrow, as well as its preservation, is imputed to providence, why not the fall as well as the preservation of a man? And why should we attribute providence only
And none of those rock formations either have anything to do with the Patagonian giants. Just saying.
what appears to be good in its immediate effect, when we suppose that the whole concatenation of events, whether the preservation or destruction of particular parts, tends ultimately to the good of the whole? The same voice
Do they?
commissions the winds to plow up the deep, which at the appointed time rebukes them, saying, "Peace, be still." If the adorable author and preserver of nature was such a being as Baal is represented to have been by the prophet, when he derided his
Baal.
worshippers, if he was sometimes on a journey and sometimes asleep, we might with propriety
It'll never not be Baal in my brain, though, because I played Diablo. And yeah, for anybody just now tuning in, don't look at me. No, I don't have any makeup on this morning for a reason, but yeah.
say that a fire happened to break out, or a storm to rise, but that by the interposition of providence life was preserved, expressions which imply that the mischief had one origin and the remedy another. But such language certainly derogates from the honor of the great universal cause, who, acting through all duration and subsisting in all space, fills immensity with his presence and eternity with his power. It will perhaps be said that in particular instances evil necessarily results from that constitution of things which is best upon the whole, and that the providence occasionally interferes and supplies the defects of the constitution in these particulars. But this notion will appear not to be supported by those facts which are laid to be providential. It will always be found that providence interposes too late, and only moderates the mischief which it might have prevented. But who can suppose an extraordinary interposition of providence to supply particular defects in the constitution of nature, who sees those defects supplied but in part?
I don't know why it's bringing Peru up on the screen. What Peru has to do with Patagonia, I'm not sure. But we've gone off the rails on this video a long time ago, I promise. Dragons and stones and mushrooms. Yes, Pareidolia has been turned up to 11 on this video, AR.
It is true that when the Endeavour was upon the rock of the coast of New Holland, the wind ceased, and that otherwise she must have been beaten to pieces. But either the subsiding of the wind was a mere natural event, or not. If it was a natural...
It is weird that all these pictures of the South American people, they all have beards and stuff, because you don't really think about native populations in the not the United States, in the New World, in South America or North America, to be like a bearded population.
Event, providence is out of the question. At least we can with no more propriety say that providentially the wind ceased, than that providentially the sun rose in the morning. If it was not a mere natural event, but produced by an extraordinary interposition, correcting a deficit in the constitution of nature, tending to mischief, it will lie upon those who maintain the position to show why an extraordinary interposition did not take place rather to prevent the ship striking than to prevent her being beaten to pieces after she had struck. A very slight impulse upon the ship's course would have caused her to steer clear of the rock, and if all things were not equally easy to omnipotence, we should say that this might have been done with less difficulty than a calm could be produced by suspending the general laws of nature which had brought on the gale. I have, however, paid my homage to the Supreme Being, consonant to my own ideas of his agency.
The Supreme Being. Let's get that right out of the gate.
Perfections. And those who are of opinion that my notions are erroneous must allow that he who does what he thinks to be right and abstains from what he thinks to be wrong acquits himself equally of moral obligation.
So I think that the rock giants are different than the Patagonian giants in their folklore, in the Tartaria, young Earth, flat Earth movement. The Tartarians, I believe that they think that Tartaria was a kingdom of humans, or was a kingdom of humans, and that there were giants, humans of large stature. But before that, like in primordial times, before the flood, that there were these giant stone giants and dragons and things like that. The primordial monsters of before God created the garden of those dark waters, those dark world of where before he said, "Let there be light" and stuff. These creatures dwelled, something like that.
Whether his opinions are false or true. And that's the end of the general introduction.
The general introduction. A 29-minute general introduction. All right, so that was flat water, flat earth. About the channel, welcome to Flat Water, Flat Earth. Now that we know much more about the true state of the earth, let's investigate further. After all knowledge is power, therefore let us be as wise as serpents, yet gentle as doves. Matthew 10:16, King James Version. God bless you, Glenn. So Glenn's the guy running this since 2016. And there haven't been anything put out in a year, but they put out links to other stuff in there. Including some Bigfoot stuff. There's Bigfoot stuff. That's from 2 years ago, though. I guess this is just this one time. Or 2 times. Yeah, look at this. Have you quit making videos? We love them. Have you lost the love? Pray you find the love in time. Love the time and energy to make more of your great videos. No, I'll be back eventually. Last year has been difficult, if not impossible, to put up more content. Most of what I'd want to share is banned and blocked already. I intend to come back and put up non-controversial videos here and to link to the more important content on another platform. God bless you. So yeah, I guess they probably ran into some censorship for Flat Earth, which is a thing that happens. And honestly, I'm not. This girl's not in favor of censoring flat earthers. I think let them put their nonsense up here, and people like Logic and Planner Walker and Simon Dan, let them put up their videos, and people like that can knock them down. It's easy peasy and fun to watch. But what do you think about giants of the past? Do you think that the Patagonian giants were just tall people that these 5-foot Spanish invaders were impressed by because they were over 6 foot? Do you think that they were actually remnants of a lost civilization of a species of giants? Do you think that they were people that were actually had giantism? Maybe, or do you think their stories are totally made up? Let me know in the comments down below, because I'm interested in knowing what you guys have to say. And again, if you like talking about giants, give me one of these in the chat. Or, if you don't have the channel membership, you can do the Littlefoots. So we're going to have Bigfoots and Littlefoots. So show me some love out there. And yeah, the answer is always aliens. Of course it is, Maya. And we will be dealing with other stuff too. We're going to talk about the cone heads. Okay, that's going to come up. We're going to talk about the cone heads at some point. So don't worry about that. And we'll probably have a cryptid creature next week, though, because I kind of bouncing back and forth between doing creatures and concepts. But keep your eye out for that. If you're watching this on Friday night with my Cryptic Corner creeps out there, remember to hit the like and subscribe. Leave your comments. Tell me what you thought of the video. Tune in tomorrow morning for more Live from the Hive, where you can join this rambunctious elite class of human citizens over here in the Live from the Hive side chat, who yeah, Coneheads are from France. You got that right, Victoria. You can join us tomorrow morning at 9:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. And then Sundays, I've been doing my Creation Watch reviews with some fun guests. Last weekend we had Ryan and Maya, and it was a good time. We talked about Halloween and some evil satanic practices and whatnot, because it was right before Halloween. Tomorrow I'm having I'm getting double docked by Doc Dino and Dr. Tapioca Weasel, and I think we're going to do Admiral Byrd. I had a video, but I want to make sure it's going to be quality enough to go through. Otherwise, I'll switch it to something else. But I do believe we're going to talk about Admiral Byrd's reports from Antarctica. All right. So please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time. All right. Live from the Hive audience. Don't leave. Do not leave. Do not go anywhere, because we have more show to come, and it's going to be a good time. So don't go. I will see you guys in Sci-Fails in just a moment, where we're going to be looking at some more bad dino videos. I'll see you guys over there. Evolutionary arms race. So that's where you get run into a lot of problems with people misunderstanding evolution, because they're like, oh, this animal hasn't changed for millions of years. It's because it's been and that's never true, by the way, but that's because it's been accustomed to that ecological niche for all that time, and it doesn't mean it hasn't been challenged for that. It just means it came out on top every time. Sharks are a good example. They're well adapted for their environment. They aren't going anywhere, well, until now. So we started killing them and eating them, but or just killing them for fun. When there's an extinction event, that's when we get what we call, it's a punctuated equilibrium. Otherwise, you experience gradualism. But when the extinction event happens, whether it's disease-driven or natural disaster, whatever, all the life forms die out. It creates basically a niche vacuum where new forms of life get to try their hands at things that their ancestors weren't able to do before because of the competition. Animals move into these more specialized niches, though. Makes them more susceptible to extinction events, or obviously we're in the middle of the Anthropocene right now, where we're the extinction event, and the specialized animals are the first ones going, especially the large ones. That's one of the most specialized niches you can be in, is a large browser or a large grazer, especially large browsers, though, because they tend to be more of a K strategist in their reproductive methodology. Speaking of, would you guys like me to talk about R strategy and K strategy? I might be able to get some friends together and maybe do a little talk about that. Hello, everybody, and welcome one and all to Sci-Fails, where we are going to examine yet another of these terrible videos found across the internet, whether they're a top 10 tier list, iceberg. Any of these little concepts are going to be picked apart and reviewed for their truth value and what kind of scientific value, education value that they're actually bringing to the table, because these are alleged, educational videos. Let me show you what I mean. All right, so this is Origins Explained, channel that talks about, Origins Explained. They have 3.81 million subscribers. This video alone has 103K views. It was just released 2 months ago. Okay? And let's see how bad it is. Let's see if it is on a scale of, from bright side to feathered fiend. See where Katrina here ranks among the science misinformation. Let me know if anything sounds off on the audio or anything, but I am ready to dive into Origins Explained, the biggest enemies of the dinosaurs.
Hi everyone, it's Katrina. Number 10, Deinosuchus. A prehistoric creature called Deinosuchus ruled the world 75 million years ago. This mighty
Well, you say ruled the world. It was in North America. Yeah, that's not the world though. It lived in the world 75 million years ago, like 60. Was it about 65 to? Let's say 65 to 85 million years ago. So the time frame is okay, but it didn't rule the world. It only lived in a select habitat.
Creature was just as long as the T-Rex, but it was twice as heavy. And it was likely more intelligent, considering the T-Rex had a tiny brain.
And it did not at all stand up on its hind legs. I don't know what this is. I don't know why the T-Rex has 3 fingers either, or why it's standing like that, or why its tail is about 1/5 the size of what looks to be 1/5 the size of its body mass, when its tail needs to be proportionally a lot bulkier than that to counterbalance its the front portion of that giant head, which is not representative at all in this model. The head on the T-Rex is kind of tiny, but it's a cartoon, so I'm not going to be too hard on it. But I will be hard on them for making the Deinosuchus stand on its hind legs like a freaking during the Triassic, there were a group of terrestrial crocodiles that kind of did this. I'm trying to remember which one was the biggest. Giant terrestrial crocodile. Okay, let's see here. Yeah, the Rarasukins. I know that, but which species was the biggest? Because that's the only thing this could be. This can't even be a Deinosuchus. It has to be something else. They got the Carolina Butcher. What's that? That's not that big, though. It's not big enough. The Carnifex. I don't know if y'all are familiar with that species. Let me bring it over here so that you guys can see what I'm talking about. It's a cool prehistoric crocodile, but it was able to get up on its hind legs like this, but it didn't approach the size, as you can see. Here's it with a human for scale of about how big it was. Even Postosuchus wasn't nearly that big, but these are the crocodilians that could stand up like dinosaurs. These are the ones that could move bipedally. And there were quite a few of them. They ruled the early Triassic, right? They were like before the dinosaurs took over in the Mesozoic. The first, I want to say about the first fifth of the Mesozoic era was the dominant carnivores were these guys. And they were totally badass and huge, absolutely huge, but nowhere near what Katrina has presented us here. And this is supposed to be a Deinosuchus anyway, which lived much later and was actually an alligatoroid. It wasn't a crocodile. It was a crocodilian to the extent that all under that clade, but it goes into the clade with alligators and caiman. It was huge, though.
The formidable carnivore lived in the coastal quagmires and swampy areas of North America. It wasn't a dinosaur, though, and it wasn't a crocodile either. Deinosuchus was a prehistoric alligator. It could
Alligatoroid. But yeah, okay.
grow 30 feet long, and it weighed around 7 tons. It was about as heavy as an elephant, and it also happened to be the largest predator in its ecosystem that we know about.
It was about as heavy as a T-Rex, too.
Deinosuchus hunted dinosaurs for sport, snapping its jaws.
Probably not for sport. Crocodilians don't generally hunt for sport. They hunt for food. Now, they get into a feeding frenzy, and even they may eat more than they need. They may consume more of the kill than they need because they want to get it before all the other competition, other crocs and stuff move in. But yeah, for the most part, they're not doing it for sport. I've never heard of anyone doing or not anyone, any crocodile has ever been documented to kill for sport.
On duckbills and horned dinosaurs, or really anything that found its way into its marshy domain. The first fossils of this creature were found in Montana in 1909 by William Jacob Holland, but only a few bones were uncovered.
It's important to remember, too, that during the Mesozoic, the late Mesozoic anyway, that you started to see this divide where crocodiles were in the southern continents and alligators were in the northern continents. And alligatoroids generally have a higher tolerance for colder temperatures. There aren't very many alligatoroids that still live in that cooler climate, but the modern alligators, both Chinese and North American or American alligators, are the northernmost crocodilians that live in that can survive the coolest temperatures.
So there wasn't enough to paint a definitive picture of what this thing really looked like. Not until 1954 did scientists piece together the ancient reptile using its few bones and filling the missing gaps with Cuban crocodile bones. In the years that
So like the Cuban crocodile is an odd duck. They are it's a crocoduck. No, it's an odd duck because they are the most terrestrial of modern crocodilians. That means they spend the most time on land, and they'll actually hunt on land too, like more akin to the way that like monitor lizards, like Komodo dragons, hunt than other crocodiles. They will do that. They'll ambush hunt from the grass instead of from the water. And they will attack in mobs. Not necessarily a pack hunting, but mob hunting, which is what a lot of the dinosaurs were thought to have done too, that were pack hunters. It was more likely that they were mob hunters that were just swarming a prey item because it was weak, and they were all going to take advantage of the weakness to take it down and consume it. Now, the Cuban crocodile, because it's not always dragging anyway. I don't say it's not dragging because they can still drag in things into the water and death roll them. Because it's not dragging things into the water to drown it. So the peg-like teeth that you see in other crocodilians, that means that they're cone-shaped and pointed to grab and pull, and they actually have a little bit of serration on their teeth to help them cut meat instead, because they're bleeding their prey out instead of drowning it.
Since then, paleontologists have found hundreds of bones scattered across 10 states. We now know there were 3 different species of Deinosuchus, and each one was more terrifying than the last. What this meant for dinosaurs of prehistoric North America was that swamps were a bad place to go. Herbivores and smaller, more defenseless dinosaurs would have been easy pickings in the humid and wet realm of Deinosuchus. And while it likely didn't...
So for a lot of dinosaurs it may have been, but I mean there were also dinosaurs that would have just been like what you see how elephants and rhinos and hippos deal with crocodiles in Africa today. It was just a scaled up version. These guys, even though they were huge, were not going to try to tackle like a sauropod or an adult ceratopsian. They could shoot for the juveniles, but that's going to be about it.
Hunt carnivorous dinosaurs like the Tyrannosaurus rex, it's tough to say who would have won in a battle if it came down to a toothy fight. Who do you think would win? Let me know in the comments below. And now for...
I think the Tyrannosaurus rex would win as long as it wasn't in the water. My opinion. Because it's more mobile and has more powerful jaws.
Number 9. But first, it's shout-out time. I want to give a big thank you to Jorge Gonzalez Larramendi for the super thanks. Thank you so much, and we really appreciate your support. If
Super thanks for your misinformation.
you are new here, be sure to subscribe to join the family. We've got lots of videos coming up. Number 9. The killer tadpole. Scientists recently revealed a killer tadpole that terrorized the planet long before the age of the dinosaurs. Scientists pieced together the discovered fragments of an ancient skull to reconstruct the face of a monstrous creature that lived 330 million years ago.
Okay, how is this the biggest enemy of a dinosaur when it lived way before the dinosaurs?
It was like a bizarre mix between a crocodile and an oversized tadpole. The extinct species is named Crassigyrinus scoticus, and scientists have known about its existence for about a decade. However, the primordial carnivore doesn't have many fossils in the record. The few fossils that have been found are in poor condition, making it tough to learn more about the animal's appearance. But by using computed tomography scans and 3D visualization technology, researchers were able to create a working picture of the beast. We now know that C. scoticus was a tetrapod, meaning it walked on 4 limbs. It was also related to the first animals that moved out of the ocean and onto land. Its earlier ancestors would have had...
So it's like a... you would want to call it like an amphibian, maybe? It's from 330 million years ago, right? That's when we had a lot of transition between land and water, and this was one of the giant-headed amphibians of the day. And it was really cool. It's a stem tetrapod. I'm here for it.
Had 4 flippers instead of legs, but it wasn't entirely a land animal either. It could still swim and favored a life in the swamps and wetlands of Scotland. The killer tadpole only grew to be about 10 feet long.
Okay, so 10 feet long is not 3 meters. 10 feet long is it was like 2 meters. They made it 2/3 bigger than it is. What is 10 feet to? Yeah. Well, I guess that's right. No, it's 10 feet's 3 meters, but this animal wasn't 3 meters. I had notes. Hold on. It was 2 meters. Crassigyrinus had a streamlined body of up to 2 meters. Yeah, it was not 10 feet long. Not at all. I don't know where that comes from. I did the types. I think we only have the hollow type specimen on this. So where they're getting these sizes from, I can't even begin to tell you.
That might not seem like much, but Laura Porro from Developmental Biology at University College London says it was huge for its time. Laura also says it would have behaved just like modern-day crocodiles. It likely lurked in the swamp just below the surface before ambushing its prey.
Hi guys! Excuse the brief interruption, but I just wanted to let you all know.
So that's what Katrina looks like, who's giving us all this bad information. But yeah, and when it showed it as an ambush predator, when you think of an ambush predator from the water, generally it's ambushing animals and prey on land. So just keep that in mind.
That we are now on Spotify. Origins Explained is now available on the free Spotify app and Spotify.com. So you have your teacher, your neighbor, you get it. See you there.
Number 8. The prehistoric badger. There was once a prehistoric badger on the planet that used to eat dinosaurs for breakfast.
It wasn't a badger. It was not a badger.
Yep, you heard that right. Paleontologists recently dug up some new specimens of the mammal from prehistoric China. The creature was so big and so vicious, it likely had a diet consisting primarily of young dinosaurs. It's called Repenomamus giganticus, and it was the size of a large dog. It measured over 3 feet long, and it was absolutely ferocious. Yao Ming Hu from the American Museum of Natural History says it looked a lot like the badgers of today, only it was as big as the meanest German Shepherd you've ever seen. And it lived 130 million years ago in northern China. The newly discovered fossil has impressed researchers because the skull is double the size of its closest relative, Rhipinomammus robustus. The sheer size of this creature's skull shocked researchers. It's totally changing the acceptance.
And these are very, very basal mammals, right? They're not related to any modern carnivore, and so they're not actually related to badgers. So calling it a prehistoric badger is fine, but it's just as long as it's understood that it's not a badger or mustelid. Mustelids were not around during this time period. This is a very basal, but it was really at the time the largest carnivorous mammal, and it is unexpected to find something that's so large because of the notion that mammals were sort of repressed due to the dinosaurs, right? But this guy was, it was as big as a raccoon. It was a pretty large creature, reaching like 30 pounds. That's about 15 kilograms for my UK friends out there. No, HiveScience is not on Spotify. Should I be on Spotify? I thought about putting just CryptoCorner on Spotify, but I haven't decided yet. I'm trying to do more with CryptoCorner as a standalone podcast segment as well. Just putting it out there and seeing how the market approaches it. But yeah, the closest that this creature gets to modern mustelids is that they're therian mammals. That's it.
That idea of mammals during the Mesozoic era. Up until recently, scientists believed mammals were small during the age of the dinosaurs. But what we have here,
relatively speaking, yes, they were small. And you're going to say this is a wolf size. I don't think so. I think a 30-pound wolf is not a healthy wolf.
It's something like a prehistoric wolf that was big enough to eat dinosaurs. It obviously wasn't going to...
Maybe like a prehistoric coyote or a prehistoric jackal, but not a prehistoric wolf. It would need to be about twice as big as it was to compete on that with that niche.
Eat a titanosaur, but baby dinos were certainly on the menu. Our Giganticus's jaw length was about equal to that of a fox, but the way it devoured its prey was brutal. The articulation of the bones suggests that the prehistoric badger preferred to dismember its victims rather than killing them on the spot. It was likely able to rip apart its prey limb from limb.
And it was very likely spent a lot of time scavenging too, because the nature of its bite, like the jaw, is durophagous. Pretty cool stuff. And plantigrade feet also indicate that it wasn't necessarily putting on a whole lot of hustle, not long distance running like a wolf. So the wolf comparison just falls apart.
Swallowing huge chunks of meat. So this cruel badger literally ate its victims, one arm at a time. Number 7, Cretoxyrhina. One of the most famous prehistoric sharks is Cretoxyrhina. The first fossils of this creature were discovered in 1843 by Swiss scientist Louis Agassiz. Then, 50 years later, another set of bones was discovered in Kansas by paleontologist Charles H. Sternberg. Scientists...
See, those are that back there that we were just looking at. These on the left here. These are what fossilized shark vertebrae look like. So check that out. If you see that in any rocks in your area, that's a shark. That's a shark that died there.
Bones was discovered in Kansas by paleontologist Charles H. Sternberg. Scientists have found hundreds of teeth, a piece of a spinal column, and enough remains that we have an excellent idea of how the prehistoric shark behaved. We know Cretoxyrhina could hold its own against the most fearsome marine predators of the ancient world. It was roughly 25 feet long and weighed between 1,000 and 2,000 pounds. And marine monsters like pliosaurs and mosasaurs likely would have steered clear of Cretoxyrhina. And those were animals that could easily eat any dinosaur silly enough to step foot in the ocean.
But dinosaurs didn't really swim in a marine environment, so unless they were scavenging on the remains of dead dinosaurs or perhaps found some dinosaur in the surf, I suppose. I don't see these guys being a big threat to dinosaurs. Why is this listed as one of the biggest enemies of dinosaurs?
CryptoCorner lived during the Cretaceous period, between 100 and 80 million years ago. It wouldn't have been easy for the prehistoric shark to hunt land dinosaurs, seeing as it couldn't survive out of the water. But it did feast on marine reptiles. One particular specimen...
That was Megalodon. It keeps showing, too. This species didn't live during the time where there were ancient whales, like what it keeps showing.
Was recently discovered with the undigested remains of Ziphiactinus, a huge prehistoric fish, and its guts. This just goes to show how formidable the shark really was. Scientists believe it also preyed on bigger marine reptiles like Tylosaurus. So, to put things simply, CryptoCorner was a killer of water dinosaurs.
Well, so Tylosaurs aren't dinosaurs. Tylosaurs are come in a variety of sizes too, and there would have been, Tylosaurs that were seal-sized or even dolphin-sized that these guys could have eaten for sure. This is a sand tiger shark on the screen right now.
So, for a shark you've probably never heard of, it was quite a fearsome beast. What's your favorite shark? Let me know in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe while you're at it. Number 6.
I like the great hammerhead. Probably is my favorite shark, I would say. Like if I wanted to, if I was ever given an option to swim with any species of shark, it'd probably be the great hammerhead.
Dino worms. If there was one true enemy of the dinosaurs, it was most likely pests. Bugs and worms were far more damaging to dinosaurs than mammals, sharks, or crocodiles. Parasites and
not earthworms like it had on the screen. No. Parasitic worms
in particular were a huge issue for carnivores. In 2006, scientists found evidence of intestinal parasites in a piece of dinosaur dung from the early Cretaceous. Fossilized dung is known as a coprolite, and this one was found in Belgium at the bottom of a coal shaft. It was the same coal shaft where paleontologists found 30 iguanodon skeletons in the 19th century.
Hell yeah, I love iguanodons. Iguanodons are cool, and they had parasites.
Inside the coprolite were traces of helminth worms. These are parasites that are very similar to ones that infect animals today. It looks like parasites haven't changed much in the past 125 million years. But it's still not clear how worms affected dinosaurs. Could one of these prehistoric beasts have gotten a tapeworm that grew to be 200 feet long? Well, that's the question scientists are trying to answer.
So tapeworms, they do get huge. They really do. But yeah, dinosaurs, we're finding out a lot about the pathologies of dinosaurs and some of the parasites and things that they dealt with. We have amber deposits with ticks in the dinosaur feathers. We have, again, coprolites, like they just mentioned, where we have different examples of intestinal parasites, and then we're going to talk about the Tyrannosaurus face here.
Discovered the skull of a tyrannosaur whose lower jaw was perforated with holes. The holes were inconsistent to what you'd expect to see from a bite. It didn't look like they were made during a fight with another dinosaur. Instead, the scientists argued the holes were made by microorganisms. Try to picture worms eating a rotten apple, only these worms were eating a tyrannosaur's jaws instead. We still don't know the full truth about dinosaurs and worms, but the evidence does suggest even the fiercest carnivore suffered from nasty parasitic infections. Number 5.
So, I think that's really cool that we found out about dinosaurs having that, and that coverage wasn't bad. Katrina did a good job there of breaking that down. I'm not going to dock any points from her for that one. From what we know about parasites and dinosaurs, yes, I think they probably suffered a great deal from parasites like animals today do.
When Tanystropheus was discovered in the early 1800s, it was mistaken for a flying reptile because its skeleton was so bizarre.
And good morning, Dr. Tapioca Weasel. Glad you could join us. This is one I was complaining to Mark and Doc Dino about last night, that they're going to call the Tanystropheus the biggest enemy of the dinosaur. The dinosaurs. I don't know what Tanystropheus could have done to be an enemy of the dinosaurs. It hung out like near the shores and ate fish. Had a really long neck. It was not adapted to consume or to compete with dinosaurs.
Paleontologists didn't know what to think of the monster, but it had an extraordinarily long neck that would put a giraffe to shame. Its remains have been found in Europe, China, and the Middle East, and it lived during the Triassic period, roughly 240 million years.
The time of weird reptiles. Again, we talked about this at the beginning of the segment when we were going over crocodilians. In the Triassic, when crocodilians ruled the world, because they always say when dinosaurs ruled the world, but beginning of the Mesozoic, crocodilians ruled the world, if that's how we're saying it. But there were all sorts of bizarre reptiles trying out different niches and poking their noses into different ecologies to see how they could sustain. We had these weird seal-like reptiles with wide mouths that scraped plant matter from rocks, like algae from rocks. We had a sloth-like tree reptile that had long claws and a prehensile tail. But then, of course, we have good old Tanystropheus with its giant neck and semi-aquatic adaptations.
Years ago. However, it wasn't a flying reptile. Tanystropheus was an aquatic reptile whose neck was twice as long as its body. The aquatic monster likely lurked around on the shoreline, waiting at the bottom of the water so it could easily surprise its prey. With its long neck, it was able to...
Those models looked more like like early plesiosaurs, like ancestors of plesiosaurs than it did. What's the ancestor of plesiosaur I'm thinking of? Early plesiosaurs. I don't want to speak out of turn, so early plesiosaur. Sorry, just take just a second. I should have this pulled up, but you know, I never know what they're gonna pop up with. I try to, yeah, like a nothosaur. Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I couldn't remember what it was, but yeah, I thought those looked more like nothosaurs. You tell me what you think, though. The ones that were shown swimming. I think it looked more like one of these than a Tanystropheus. But we'll look at more images of Tanystropheus as we move through here. So
hide its body in the sand with its neck stuck up vertically and its head near the surface where it could easily snag some food. Inside the creature's guts, paleontologists have found scales and squid hooks. According to researchers, Tanystropheus was likely a piscivore, meaning it only fed on fish. And of course, squid. It was alive during the earliest stages of dinosaur evolution. Dinosaurs began to evolve about
what the hell kind of evolution was that?
On fish. And of course, squid. It was alive during the earliest stages of dinosaur.
Did that lizard just turn into a glyptodont and then Andrewsarchus?
Dinosaurs began to evolve.
Lizard, glyptodont, Andrewsarchus? No!
Evolved about 245 million years ago, so there was definitely some overlap. It's unlikely that Tanystropheus feasted on any dinosaurs, but it was still a scary creature that guarded the coastlines and ate whatever fish and squid it could.
So why is it the biggest enemy of the dinosaurs then? Why did you put it in a video called Biggest Enemies of the Dinosaurs if it couldn't even impact the dinosaurs in any way?
Number 4.
Well, I shouldn't say in any way. Ecologically, it could impact them. I mean, competing with, because it does fill a niche presumably similar to birds. So I mean, it could compete with birds, but birds weren't around in the Triassic, so it was filling this niche. Morning, Carol. Morning,
Researchers
Tsunami.
believe they have just found evidence of an ancient crocodile species that had a hankering for dinosaur meat. The animal wasn't a crocodile at all, but rather a crocodiliform, an extinct species that lived during the Mesozoic era. They were very similar to crocodiles, but they also had some major differences. Most were carnivores, but a handful of them were herbivores. Some were even what we call durophagores, meaning they primarily...
Durophagus. Yeah, they were.
typically ate hard-shelled animals. But there was one member of the crocodiliform family that had a diet rarer than the rest. It was called Ogorsuchus, and it may have sustained itself on a strict diet of dinosaurs. Researchers have always known there were crocodiliforms big enough to be enemies to the dinosaurs, but they never had any concrete proof that it happened. Now, after all these years of speculation, scientists finally found evidence in the Winton Formation in Australia. They discovered the partial remains of an ornithopod inside the preserved stomach of a crocodile.
And now, Ogorsuchus was a sebecid, which is pretty cool. The cool thing about sebecids is that they kind of transcend the Mesozoic. They talk about, they said, oh, they lived during the Mesozoic, but sebecids, as a clade, they transcend that. They actually move into the Paleogene with several members rising to prominence in South America, where they ruled they ruled the world, as we like to say, for for a few million years. Ruled the world because they lived in an isolated population in South America. But that's the way we started this video, because they lived in the Americas that ruled the world.
This has been huge because it offers the first physical proof that crocodiliforms couldn't get enough of that sweet dinosaur meat. But
so it had one sauropod in its belly.
It looks like the prehistoric croc died shortly after its meal. The dinosaur in its belly didn't have enough time to be dissolved by the creature's stomach acids.
And Ogorsuchus didn't look like that either.
The crocodiliform has since been named Confractosuchus saurochtonus. That's as good as it's gonna get. Which means a broken dinosaur eater in English. This monster was about 7 feet long and may have been a juvenile, likely still growing when it died.
Did we switch
dinosaurs?
dinosaurs?
In English. This monster was about, which
What
means a broken dinosaur acids. The crocodiliform has since been named
I thought we were talking about Ogorsuchus. Did we switch it up? And this, are we not talking about Ogorsuchus anymore? We're talking about Confractosuchus. Let me see. They're not synonyms, are they? Did you just switch? Confractosuchus is not. Is not Ogorsuchus. So you're talking about two different dinosaurs here, and you didn't give, and they're both under the same number. Because you had Ogorsuchus right here, and then right after Tanystropheus, and you didn't give us another number, and switched right over to Confractosuchus. They're not the same. They're not the same animal. And they didn't live in the same formation, I don't think. Did they? Hold on. I'm looking at the paleoecology. No, not that. Wrong window. Switch that back out. No, there's nothing about Ogorsuchus. She's just conflating two clades.
Saurochtonus. That's as good as it's gonna get. Which means a broken dinosaur eater in English. This monster was about 7 feet long and may have been a juvenile, likely still growing when it died on its last dinosaur. Number 3,
So yeah, they switched it right into another species of crocodile or crocodilian, but not a sebecid. Not a sebecid, a Eusuchia, which is different. Sebecids are, well, I guess Eusuchia does contain sebecids. To try to keep up with this stuff. Let me see here. So, sebecids separate from. Yeah, I'm just annoyed that they put to both like they were the same species.
Constrictor. Snakes are notoriously difficult to find in the fossil record.
Hey,
There's
Al.
almost no evidence of a snake that lived during the days of the dinosaurs. There were definitely snakes.
Confuciusuchus sauerkrautinus. Is that your favorite crocodilian, Sumami?
After the asteroid that killed the dinos, but even snakes that lived a few million years ago have left almost nothing behind for scientists to find. Titanoboa, believed to be the biggest snake that ever existed, is only known because
Is way after the dinosaurs too, so it cannot be the biggest enemy of the dinosaurs. There were no confirmed snakes, as far as I know, from the Mesozoic at all.
of some random vertebrae discovered in a Colombian coal mine. Based on the fossils in the coal mine, we know Titanoboa was truly giant. Estimates place the snake at 47 feet long, and it's a
Ridiculously high estimates do, yeah, but I digress. It did not live with the dinosaurs, so it doesn't belong on this list at all. So I'm not even going to argue with your bad
supposedly
nations here.
weighed 2,500 pounds. It lived during the Paleocene epoch, likely between 60 and 58 million years ago.
Yeah.
And researchers think it only evolved in the years following the extinction of non-avian dinosaurs. After Titanoboa came the Eoconstrictor. It was very similar but lived sometime during the Eocene epoch, 56 to 33
And it also did not live alongside non-avian dinosaurs and could not have been one of the biggest enemies of the dinosaurs.
million years ago. Even though it lived more recently than Titanoboa, only a handful of Eoconstrictor specimens have been found in Germany's Messel pit. These snakes weren't all that big either, measuring no more than 6 feet. Titanoboa could have easily eaten a huge variety of dinosaurs. They likely wouldn't have fought the giants like Giganotosaurus, but most dinosaurs would have been easy prey because of the scarce.
And I did misspeak. There were snakes in during the Mesozoic, but they were small. They weren't anywhere approaching the size of Titanoboa. Just to clarify, sorry for the misspeak there. There were like a half a dozen species of snakes from the Cretaceous. I just pulled it up here. So I was like, wait a minute. I know that the Nagesh was from the Cretaceous, but Nagesh has some funny little hind limbs. So I don't know if it counts as a snake if it has legs, huh?
Fossils of snakes, it's possible there may have been other giant snakes that lived alongside dinosaurs. We just haven't found proof of them yet. Number 2, the bird mimic. Technically, Ornithomimus was a dinosaur, but to the naked
Right. It was a dinosaur. So how's it the biggest enemies of dinosaurs? And it's an Ornithomimus. It's not gonna...
eye,
What's it
was
gonna
really
do?
a prehistoric ostrich. Ornithomimus means bird mimic because these dinos looked way more like birds than what you would expect a dinosaur to look like.
Birds are dinosaurs. What a bird looks like is what I expect a dinosaur to look like. Birds are dinosaurs. I'm not going to freaking keep repeating that. But to say bird-like dinosaur is just, to me, it's like dinosaur. But when it comes to... Anyway, I'm just gonna go. I'm gonna let it play because I'm frustrated and having a...
These were freakish bird-like beings that expanded
Freakish.
during the late Cretaceous
Why are they freakish? You are so weird.
from Eurasia and North America. Ornithomimus had a small head, a fat torso, long legs, and dangling arms. Just imagine an ostrich with arms, and you'll have a pretty good idea of what this thing looked like.
And a tail and teeth.
But even with those floppy arms, it could run at a top speed of roughly 30 miles per hour. It was also the victim of some serious prejudice in the dinosaur kingdom. All physical evidence points to Ornithomimus being a plant eater. The reason it could run so fast
Well,
is that
ornithomimids, they eat plants, but it's also considered that it would have eaten small insects and vertebrates, invertebrates too, if they could, anything could get in its mouth. But that's, what we call herbivores today will do that too. Cows and deer and sheep, they'll snack on a lizard if they can catch
it
it.
needed to escape tyrannosaurs and raptors that were trying to pluck out its feathers and eat it. The bird mimic is a little strange because it's not even an ancestor of modern birds. Our current birds descended from small feathered raptors, not from the
Maniraptorans is the proper group name.
dinosaur that physically looked like a bird. What do you think of this creature? Let me know in the comments. Number 1. The dragon. Dinosaurs had a great enemy in the sky. Pterosaurs weren't dinosaurs. They were more like prehistoric dragons. While dinos were busy stomping around on the land, and while crocodiliforms were ruling the swamps, dragons ruled the skies. In a recent shocking
They're not dragons, of course. They're pterosaurs, but go off.
discovery, scientists found the remains of a pterodactyl with a wingspan about the size of an F-16 fighter jet. The pterodactyl
Where?
that was discovered was killed in the prime of its life, and its fossils were found in a phosphate mine in northern Morocco. The massive beast, a flying nightmare by every definition, was 30 feet long and weighed 440
Okay.
pounds. But how could a reptile grow so huge and still be able to fly?
I don't think pterodactyls got that big. Some pterosaurs did, but not pterodactyls.
Scientists say it's because pterosaurs evolved lightweight skeletons. Their bones were reduced to nothing
True.
more than hollow tubes with walls about as thin as paper. Inside the Moroccan mines, a total of 200 specimens were recovered. There was the giant dragon the size of a fighter jet, and 6 other species from 3 distinct families. Most pterosaurs likely hunted fish.
I believe it was a pterosaur, but you said it was a pterodactyl that was that big. I want to know what species of pterodactyl you're talking about. Pterodactyls did not get the size of fighter jets.
Just like modern birds, but there may have been a few who were a little more interested in hunting small land dinosaurs. And since they were the only things of this
Yeah, why wouldn't you just focus on Quetzalcoatlus here? Because Quetzalcoatlus literally walked around feeding on baby dinosaurs if you could catch them. It's a thing.
sky, they didn't have much competition to worry about. Thanks for watching. Who do you think would win in a fight, a T-Rex or a Deinosuchus? Let me know what you think in the comments below, and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. See you next time. Bye!
Bye, Katrina. What the heck was that? There was a dinosaur on the list. There was, let's go through and see who we had. We had Deinosuchus, and we had, I don't know, William Jacob Holland. I don't know what that is. Cuban croc bones. Yeah, that much of the video was dedicated to... This much of the video was dedicated to Deinosuchus, though. They put a lot of effort into that. Then we had the prehistoric tadpole, which lived way, way before the dinosaurs. And then we have... What do we have after that? We had the... Yeah, still going on about that, saying it's the size of a wolf. The ancient mammal. And then we had... That's sharks. Yeah, so... some of these creatures did live with dinosaurs. Some of them did not. Yeah. But that's neither here nor there, because out of all the ones that are listed, only a couple of them could have had interactions with dinosaurs in real time. And the ones that did, some of the ones that they listed off were dinosaurs. So some of them lived before, some of them lived after. Not well thought out. Some of the most of the information here was pretty accurate in comparison to what we've seen before on this segment. So I'll give her props for that. And there were some segments that were freaking gold, but for the most part, rubbish, absolute rubbish. All right. So thank you for sticking with me through this. Yet again, another delve into some sci-fails, this time from Origins Explained with Katrina. Hope you enjoyed the segment. Please remember to be kind, take care, and we will see you next time. All right, don't go anywhere, Hive. Do not go anywhere. Once again, I'm going to tell you this. Do not leave, because I have lots more show to do here. I got some important stuff to go over here in the near future. So stick around, and we will be diving into some... Well, we're actually going to do... Yeah, we're going to do a new segment. So... stick around for HiveSci. Coming up next, And I will see you guys over there. Better unmute myself if I want to say hi to everybody. Hello, hello, my beautiful Hive. Thank you so much for popping into this little portion of legendary creatures that I'm going to be talking about. And this is where I dive into animals who have made a significant impact on culture and society, whether it's through predation or other kinds of acts. Regardless, yeah, we're going to explore different creatures throughout time and history, and some of them more realistic than others, perhaps. But let's start today with the legend of Three Toes, the killer plains wolf, because he was pretty prominent and pretty popular. So let's go.
He was raiding ranches and herds, leaving
All
death
right.
in his wake. Our minds oftentimes turn immediately to thinking about the living legends back then, Wild Bill Hickok and Wyatt Earp and many others, men and women, who walked right out of the Old West and straight into the history books. But not all West legends walked on 2 legs. Some walked on 4. Let me explain. For over a decade, a killer known as Three Toes roamed the Badlands of Montana and North Dakota. He was raiding ranches and herds, leaving death in his wake. A $500 dead or alive bounty ended up being placed on the head of Three Toes, and this desperado was one of the last of his kind.
Three Toes, trapped on July 23rd, 1925 in Cahoon Pasture near Gallup, South Dakota by Clyde F. Briggs, Department of Agriculture inspector. The dead Three Toes still in traps held up by a rope.
He was a Great Plains wolf. Three Toes' infamy had become known far and wide and earned him legendary status due to his ability to evade capture or death while waging economic warfare on ranchers and anybody with domestic animals. He roamed over a wide territory, killing sheep, calves, hogs, colts, cattle, and horses. He killed for killing's sake, usually leaving his victims uneaten.
And this is a common thing with man-eaters and cattle killers in general, that they will, if they have an injury, often they resort to these hunting tactics because hunting their natural prey that's more athletic than domestic cattle or humans is too difficult. So, Three Toes. Why was he called Three Toes? He had 3 toes on one of his paws, and they could track him when they were tracking him. That's how they knew which one it was. That's how they knew it was him committing all these surplus killings. But surplus killing is not uncommon in carnivorans. Cats and dogs and wolves and bears have all been documented to surplus kill on occasion. And why the cause of it is little understood. There really isn't any known remedy either.
His telltale 3-toed tracks would inevitably be found at the scene. Now, nearly every professional wolf hunter of the Northwest had tried to capture him, but failed. First noticed in 1909, Charlie Wilson and Bill Foreman were riding along when they saw a wolf limping toward them. The wolf stopped at a distance and lifted a bloody front paw like a dog asking for help. Well, when Wilson pulled a rifle out of his scabbard, the wolf jumped into a ravine and vanished. About the same time, E. Avala, a nearby rancher, found the severed toes of
Found the toes.
the wolf in one of his traps. No. After this, Three Toes couldn't be trapped or poisoned, as he was far too wary of humans and as cunning as...
He was pissed. He got his foot trapped and lost some of his digits, and somehow managed to survive this grievous wound. And heal, and he needed to be able to eat, and he had to find prey that was something he could actually catch and take down.
as any wolf that ever lived. It's estimated at that time that Three Toes had cost ranch owners and stockmen over $50,000 in lost stock. He was pursued by over 150 men at times. It was even said that coyotes would follow Three Toes just to feed off his kills, as he would leave them untouched and move on to his next victim.
It is tempting to personify Three Toes here and think that he was out for vengeance against the creatures that maimed his foot, and by killing their livestock, he was taking his pound of flesh. But it's easy to personify animals, and I try to avoid doing it. So, yeah.
One rancher lost over 40 sheep in just 2 nights. Bounty hunting trackers could read his signs easily. The telltale 3-toed paw print combined with the mass slaughter of uneaten animals. All the hunters needed to do was follow the river of blood. The trouble was the old wolf was no easier to catch when cornered as he was a mile away. Many in the pursuit of the wily old wolf told of Three Toes jumping over vast distances to escape capture. Others have seen him jump up sheer cliffs 7 to 8 feet tall. Some ranchers had wondered if maybe even he had once been a pup in captivity, or perhaps had escaped from a sled team in the Northland. When hard-pressed by pursuers, Three Toes used tactics like circling back around, backtracking and leaping over soft ground or snow that would leave a sign of his passing. He was even seen to trot through a ranch yard like a dog as he tried to evade suspicion. One time, hunters ran Three Toes for around 100 miles without getting a shot at him. Another time, a hunter used several horses in relays on the chase without results. The wolf actually stopped to kill 15 sheep in a corral while the chase was in progress. John Martin, a state hunter, spent months on his trail using traps, rifle, poison, and chasing methods. In 1924, he ran the wolf for 3 days, covering 200 miles of trail.
On his hobbled foot, too, he's running this wolf down. This is an amazing animal, a resilient animal that they're putting all this effort into taking out. I get why they're doing it. There's money involved, right? And a wolf's life is worth less than a sheep's life. A wolf's life is worth less than a human's life, at least in the society that we've built.
And came close to capturing him. Three Toes was so exhausted he fell many times, and Martin thought he had him. Then as he closed in, the wolf would rise again and trot off, looking for a means of escape. Three Toes eventually made it to the ice on the Grand River, and, leaving no trail to follow, he disappeared. The U.S. Department of Agriculture sent an inspector to catch the killer, Clyde Briggs. He had hunted rogue wolves all over the Northeast. He knew all the tricks needed to catch the beast. Well, Clyde arrived in Harding County, South Dakota, and immediately he and his 2 assistants went to the location of where Three Toes had last been seen. For 3 weeks they tracked their elusive quarry, laying traps and setting poison. Early one morning they came up upon a wolf in one of the traps they had set, and it was Three Toes. He had been caught by the placing of natural wolf scent on a sage bush. One trap was set next to the bush and staked in the ground. Another was put 5 feet away and staked. As Three Toes approached, cautiously sniffing the bush, the trap sprang shut on his front paw. Then as he fought desperately to free himself while he circled the trap, pulling on his paw, the other trap snapped shut on his hind leg paw. He was done. He fought the traps to the point of exhaustion, and he lay there, quiet and still, as the men approached. His eyes darted about and followed the men's movements, but the hours and hours...
This is just sad now.
...of fighting for his life had made him docile, a pitiful end for the famous killer. The inspector intended to bring the great...
This would be a good movie, I think, Jeannie. That's my opinion.
...beast in alive and roped the wolf and bound his jaws. On the trip back to town, one of the men noticed that Three Toes had stopped breathing and his eyes had glazed over. The legend was dead. He was thought to be around 20 years old and over 6 feet in length. He was down on weight and condition with his advanced age and weighed in around 80 pounds. Just 1 year later, in 1926, Three Toes species, the Great Plains wolf, or the buffalo wolf, was declared extinct. A memorial stands in Buffalo, South Dakota.
That's the thing right there. That's the point of the reason why I decided this is what I was going to start this with right there. This species is now extinct. Oh. They made such a big deal about killing this one wolf. Meanwhile, its whole species is gone from the face of the earth, or subspecies is gone from the face of the earth. So... Oh. Yeah. Anyway, so that's the story.
Toes, and his skull resides in the Smithsonian Institute.
Yes, and this was this is from Wild West Faces. The legend of Three Toe, the killer plain wolf. I thought it was interesting and worth sharing as we move through the Anthropocene extinction and see the results of our progress as a species to our conquest over the natural world, and the just one of the many victims. And this one fought tooth and nail to the very end to live its natural life in its ecology. It's ridiculously sad to just even contemplate something as abundant. We almost wiped out the bison too, and there was like 2 billion bison in the American Great Plains when the white settlers arrived. And these wolves, like, they lived in an ecology where that was just their life and what they did. Now, Three Toes was a lone wolf because, imagine the injury probably didn't make the wolf very valuable to a pack. Plus, their prey, this is 1925, right? Their prey, the American bison, is basically eradicated at this point, right? And all of its land has been replaced with livestock, with sheep and cattle. And the bisons are, they're bouncing back. We have a sustainable population now. Yeah, anyway, that was a little bit of, we'll put this into, it's sort of like some eco news, but when it comes to extinction and eradication, we're going to talk about in this segment tigers and in different species of leopards and subspecies of animals. We'll probably talk about the Tasmanian tiger here a bit, and we'll talk about some that went extinct in more ancient times, like the auroch and some species that are some subspecies and breeds and land races that you all maybe have never even heard of. I guess I want to talk about like first contact dogs. I want to talk about the grice. Do you all know what a grice is? We'll learn that. You're going to learn that in this segment. So, thank you for tuning in here. I got one more thing after this I'm going to talk about, but to my Monday night crew, thank you so much for popping in and giving this a watch. And be kind and take care. All right. The last thing I want to talk about, I don't know, when I started this stream today, there wasn't very many people here. Just because I set my start time wrong or something, I don't know. But I only had like 5 people here. But I did talk about my experience last night with some blatant transphobia in a bar here locally. It was awkward and uncomfortable. I don't go out very much, so it was because of this stuff. Now, this spills over into every aspect of life. They think we're mentally ill. They think we're sick in the head. Recently, I read this thing about this Alabama mayor. Him Meta did a thing about it yesterday. And his name was Bubba Copeland. And he was outed as having I chose this article because it didn't have the pictures. Because I don't want to throw his pictures up if he doesn't want people to see him. This man right here, though, this is how he wanted the world to see him. So that's fine. Here he is with Trump. Now, He's a Baptist preacher and the mayor of a town, right? He, in his private life, likes to cross-dress and take pictures with his spouse. Something I did myself when I was married. You know, when I was with my ex, I would cross-dress and we'd take pictures. It actually led me to believe that I could do this. So I was like, damn, I'm fucking hot. So I leaned into it and went all in. Now, Bubba said he was doing it as a joke. He had a account with a female identity where he engaged as a trans version of himself. I don't know if it was a serious thing. He said it wasn't. It was just for fun. But you don't know what's going on inside somebody's head. I will take his word for it that it was for fun. We'll never know. But the results. He was basically outed publicly, and I imagine it was quite humiliating for him. I'm gonna watch just a couple minutes of this, of his sermon he did here about this happening to him.
Out of town on a prior
Oh,
commitment.
that's not the one I wanted.
So we are glad that you are
Shoot.
here. Also wanted to let you know just ahead of time that we're going to be having our Christmas music on December 17th.
Good afternoon. Welcome to First Baptist, our Wednesday night prayer request list. Our list goes as follows. The McGar family, Virginia Mitchell, Annelle Green, Herschel Green, Esther
I had a timestamp for it. Hold on, I'm gonna see if I can find it.
David McCarson,
Bear with me just a
Ron
sec.
Patrick, Stephen Swolles, Patrick Day, Pat and Frank Youngstrom, Lottie Walker, Leslie Podbell, Donna Rodriguez, Elias Roberts Jr., Ty Strickler, Angela Woolmer,
I think that's the last section here.
Congregation Church, people on Facebook. I've been an object of an internet attack, an article that was written about my capacity as the mayor, capacity as a pastor. The article is not who or what I am. Yes, I have taken pictures with my wife in the privacy of our home in an attempt of humor, because I know I'm not a handsome man nor a beautiful woman either. I apologize for any embarrassment caused by my private and personal life that has come publicly. This will not cause my life to change. This will not waver my devotion to my family, to serving my city, and serving my church. I'm thankful for the grace of God, the willingness to forgive. I have nothing to be ashamed of. A lot of things that were said were taken out of context. In conclusion, I love my family. They're number one, and again, I'm sorry for what my actions have caused. And I'm thankful for the hundreds and hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people that have reached out to me today in love. And I know that there are others that have not, but just know I love you, and Jesus loves you as well. If you turn your Bibles to Psalms chapter 23, verse 1 through 6, Psalm of David. The Lord is my shepherd.
So that's all I mean, he does his prayer after this. This is all that I wanted to share from this story. So we'll get back over here. So him at Meta released one of his blogs about this gentleman's being outed this way. Yesterday I read it I get in my email. Now, this morning I woke up and Arden Hart had released a notice that the gentleman had taken his own life. So this is Arden's tweet. This pastor, after being outed against his will, claims that let me start over again. This pastor, after being outed against his will, claimed this was just a character to relieve stress. But I think it's important to acknowledge seemingly sincere posing as a trans woman isn't the same as drag. This person was bullied to suicide for gender transgressive behavior. So, I didn't want to share that. I'm sorry. I don't want to put his transition. I'll blur that or something when I edit this, or just cut that out. But he took his own life because of being outed this way. I haven't been able to find Sumami. I haven't been able to find anything that shows that he was fervently supportive of Trump. If you absolutely have if you have links to that. I think that they have this picture with him with Trump when there was the tornado that came through, and he was the mayor of the town that was hit by a tornado. As far as I can tell, his church is like a progressive one. So I don't know. And the pictures that I saw didn't actually look dirty. They were like him legitimately dressed up as a woman. But yeah, if you have any information to the contrary, I'll definitely take that. But that's not the impression that I got from any of the articles that I've read about this. During the interview with 1819 News, Copeland confirmed that he operated the account and had featured in the pictures. He claimed it was only a means of getting rid of stress. He called the posting a hobby and a fantasy. He also said his erotica was purely fiction. And after the interview, Copeland promptly deleted the account and asked them not to be made public due to his family and position as a pastor. Just my wife knows about this, Copeland said. It's a hobby and due to stress, to relieve stress. I have a lot of stress and I'm not medically transitioning. It's just a bit of a character I'm playing. I don't go out and seek solicitation or anything like that, he continued. It's something that I don't intermingle with others, with the other. It's private and I don't do it in public or anything like that. It's just a fictional character I made up to relieve stress. But the fact that yeah, well, and I get that, the picture of him with Trump. I don't know. Oh, I didn't mean to. There I go again. I didn't mean to. Yeah, but that's why I was saying this picture, and I'm going off of what him at Meta says. Because him at Meta said that he didn't find any evidence this guy was a Trump supporter, other than that Trump came to his town and he was the mayor that met Trump when there was a hurricane. That's what I know of his association with Donald Trump. Not that he was a Trump supporter. Any little town that has a state of emergency, generally when the president shows up, they do the press. And I welcome any evidence that was the situation. I don't know. Again, I'm going off of what him at Meta put out there, but whether this gentleman was with the people pushing the narrative or not, it was the narrative being pushed that led to this. If it hadn't been for whether he was participating in it, which would be hypocrisy of the highest degree, I agree, that he was I trust you, Sumami. If you're telling me that he was like a anti-LGBTQ person, I believe you. If you tell me that, I saw like there was a sign. You know what? Screw it. I'm just gonna scroll past the pictures. Like his church and stuff. This is what. Y'all are affirming church and. Yeah, here's where it talks about his. There's nothing that here he goes. There's nothing I found on First Baptist Church's Facebook that tells me they're anti-LGBT or anti-drag or anything of that sort. They do take advantage of resources from larger conservative Baptist groups for vacation Bible school or missionary trips, but again, I'm not seeing any examples of right-wing propaganda emanating from the church. So I ask again, who cares what... Yeah, anyway, so that's what... Okay, I didn't know. I just... Yeah, this is it. My opinion on this is completely based on my trust of him at Meta. About this gentleman. I don't know. There are things here that say that it's you can't. It's really you to be a Baptist and be. Yeah, that's fair. A fair point, Sumami. Fair point. Given Trump's toxic personality, if my town needed me to suck up to Trump after a disaster, I would. Remember Puerto Rico. I'm not going to give Trump any reason to withhold help. Yeah, Trump's a total monster. Remember when he was talking about withholding aid from California during the wildfires? When he was talking about Puerto Rico? Being someone that lives in an area that gets fucked up by hurricanes and tornadoes all the time, I would not have wanted him to show up. Sometimes, and I agree with that too, because sometimes when the president shows up, they have to shut shit down. When you're trying to deal with a state of emergency and you're trying to get emergency supplies in, get refugees out, having the president show up with his motorcade and all the security and streets shutting down that was required for that, it's counterproductive. I agree. He has no say over disaster federal aid. That's the government's job. Yeah, but he freaking, I don't know, he tried when it was Puerto Rico and California and stuff. He was not, as far as I know, I don't, it's been a while. I have to look up some articles on that. But yeah, Trump sucks. We can all agree on that. And whether Bubba Copeland sucked, I don't know. But we'll never. I mean, maybe we'll never know now because he's gone. I don't. My channel's not about trans issues like all the time, but I considering what happened to me last night, and then getting up and reading this morning, I'm just I don't know. I'm done. I'm gonna let Ari Drennan close this out. If you don't know who Ari Drennan is, she's my new wife. She's a Media Matters trans correspondent, talking about some of this stuff. I'm just gonna let her go.
Is being trans a mental illness? Let's start the series off with one of the most common misconceptions about trans identity. Hi everybody, I'm Ari Drennan. I'm a journalist and a trans woman, and I'm tackling the questions about trans identity that you're afraid to ask, and arming you with the best responses to common myths. The American Psychological Association says that because trans people do not necessarily experience their cross-sex identity as disabling or distressing, that it doesn't meet the definition of a standard mental illness. Under the Diagnostic and Standard Manual of Mental Illness, which you've probably heard of as the DSM, diagnosis for people who experience intense, persistent gender incongruity is known as gender dysphoria, which is treatable. It's important to remember that trans people are not a new concept. Trans people have been described all throughout history, with ancient Greek and Roman writings describing people who changed their gender. There was even a Roman emperor, Elagabus, who offered large sums of money to any doctor willing to perform gender reassignment surgery. Unfortunately, at that time, there were no takers. And in the modern era, the first ever gender confirmation surgery was performed in 1952, which, contrary perhaps to the recollections of many people in my Twitter replies, was actually quite a while.
Thank you for sticking through the whole show, Jeannie. Much love from the Hive.
Ago. And although there are many potential hypotheses, it's currently unknown what actually causes people to develop a transgender identity. There's one study that suggested that brain differences between transgender women and cisgender men exist even prior to medical transition, but its sample size was very small. And it doesn't really matter either way because existing research shows that there's no connection between belief that an identity is innate and acceptance of the group that holds that identity. Trans people do, however, experience higher rates of mental health disorders that are linked to societal rejection and mistreatment, including depression, anxiety, and substance abuse disorder, which is all the more reason to end the stigma around trans identity. There is, after all, no mental illness whose cure is bullying and harassment. Thank you all for watching. I'll have another one next week.
So that's just what Ari's putting out. I like Ari Drennan. Follow her on Twitter. Subscribe to her Substack because Twitter sucks. And I'm not going to call it X, so you can forget it. I'm calling it Twitter until the day I die. So, yeah. Anyway, that was my kind of unconventional closer to Life from the Hive today. Hope you all enjoyed the show. We had Patagonian giants, right? That was fun, and then we had the enemies of dinosaurs that weren't with dinosaurs. They didn't live with dinosaurs at all. And we had Three Toe, the wolf, and then we wrapped it up with this Bubba Copeland situation. So, please remember to be kind. Take care. And we'll see you next time.